Games and Goblins, Buy the Right Stuff. Once upon a time in a peaceful village in a beautiful forest, there lived a little girl with golden hair and a musical laugh. She had a bright mind and a spark of life, and a talent for games and riddles. The little girl had a happy life, but from time to time the grown-ups would catch her making mischief and scold her for it. For since the girl was exceptionally wise and cunning for her age, mischief came easily to her. But her parents did not blame her, though they taught her not to make mischief on others, for one should do unto others as they would have done unto them. They knew that there was something special about that child, from her wits alone, though they knew not what it was. They did believe, however, that what she had was a gift, and she was most precious in their sight. And so it came to pass that the girl, learning right from wrong, would venture into the forest if ever she felt the urge to make mischief, bringing nothing but some food, some medicine, and a game board, on which she matched wits with herself. She did not mind, of course, for she was never alone. The animals of the woods did not shy away from her, as they did the hunters. The girl did not know why, but she could understand the animals, and for years she listened to them speak of their tales, their joys, and their woes. Sometimes she would bring them food or medicine, or instead tell her neighbours when they were foraging too deep in the forest. This went on for quite some time, as the girl walked away her urges for making mischief, returning to her home ready to laugh, learn, and love with her neighbours. The people and the animals never fully knew what to make of her, for she had spent half her time in the forest and half her time in the village. But eventually they grew used to her comings and goings. One day, however, her animal friends seemed most concerned. "What is the matter?" the girl asked.
"We have new visitors,"
they answered.
"and they seem most distressed."
The girl asked to speak with them, and they obliged. In a clearing where the animals gathered, she found some she never saw before, their coats looking worn out and dirty, with fear and fatigue in their eyes. Seeing this made the girl's heart ache, and she spoke kindly to them, brushing the dirt from their fur and feathers as gently as she could.
"Hello,"
said the girl.
"Though I am only a little girl, may I be of help to you? I cannot bear to see you in such a state."
The animals bowed before her, replying,
"Little girl, we thank you for your kindness, but you cannot solve what we flee from. Better you go home and warn your people to run far from here."
"Why?" asked the girl.
"What dangers made you leave your homes?"
"Goblins," replied a fox, the only meat-eater among the deer, rabbits and birds. "They come down from the mountains looking for things to eat and steal, and then return when there's nothing left. We fled when they took their iron axes and chopped down our homes, and we fear they're marching this way as well." The girl thought about this, for she remembered her lessons well, including all the different monsters that awaited in the world beyond. And as she recalled, goblins had a particular weakness. And so the little girl made a decision.
"You have all been so kind to me," she said, "and I wish to save my home and yours. Though I am only a little girl, I will see if I can stop the goblins from taking more from us."
Most of the animals begged her not to go, for they did not wish to see her dead. But the fox saw the sparkle in her eye. He alone of all the animals said, "Though I am only a fox, I will go with you, so you're not alone." And so it came to pass that the girl and the fox went to meet the goblins. Sure enough, eventually they came across the goblins, first by their foul stench, then by their raucous voices, and finally by the sight of them. They were a rambunctious rabble, clad in rags and primitive armour, sometimes parading stolen trinkets as if they were necklaces or bracelets. Their heads were as large as melons, their noses the size of cucumbers, and their ears were curved. They were shorter than the grown-ups, but with larger, longer limbs. They spat, they roared, they laughed at all the crude gestures they made to one another. In their long arms they held dirty, rough-looking weapons, nicked and rusted, and probably stolen. The girl approached them calmly, without fear. Instead, she had a sparkle in her eyes. As the goblins looked at her in surprise and curiosity, the girl greeted them, saying,
"Greetings, goblins of the mountains. What brings you to my home?"
The goblins were stunned with silence. Then some laughed, some jeered, and some snarled.
"Your home?"
They sneered.
"A little thing like you lives here in the woods."
"Of course it is my home. Why else would I be here?"
she replied with a sweet smile. The goblins looked puzzled, but they could not fault her logic. A goblin with a beard, smoking a pipe, stepped forward and glowered at her menacingly.
"We come to take food, metal, weapons, and no one will stand in our way."
The goblins cheered their fellow and jeered at the girl, who simply smiled.
"But don't you know,"
she asked,
"that if you wish to enter the domain of the princess, you must first best her at her game?"
The goblins paused, seeking counsel among each other. An even smaller one in a wizard's hat, riding in a washing basin, carried by one of his fellows, spoke.
"She's right,"
he squeaked.
"It is the rules. You can only enter if you win her contest."
The bearded goblin scoffed.
"It is the rules."
He agreed.
"But are you saying you are the princess? This forest has no king, no castles, and you are only a little girl. Where is your magic then?"
The spark in the little girl's eye twinkled as she replied.
"But of course I am the princess. How else would I have the beast of the forest at my side? How else could I be here to welcome you to my domain, if I did not have the magic that let me find you?"
Again the goblins muttered their agreement to her logic, and even the bearded one relented. Beside her, the fox watched curiously.
"Very well,"
he muttered.
"What is your contest, O princess of the forest?"
The little girl beckoned the goblins to a stump of a tree they had felled and set out her board game upon it.
"If you can best me in this game, I promise to lead you to what you seek, provided you grant me a promise in return. If I win, however, you must leave my domain."
The goblins consulted each other, arguing this way and that. Some said they should eat the princess, others that they should only leave. Some said the girl must be lying, but others said she used flawless logic and must be a most powerful enchantress. But if the goblins had a weakness, it was that they followed the ancient laws. And the law of the princess's contest was one of them. And so it came to pass that the goblins as a whole grumbled their reluctant agreement to the terms. Within 5 moves they had been defeated.
"That was not fair,"
complained one goblin.
"We did not know how to play this game."
The girl smiled sweetly and replied.
"But you did not ask me to teach you this game."
Again the goblins had to admit to the girl's flawless logic.
"Now it is time to be on your way,"
she continued, but the goblins protested.
"We cannot leave empty-handed. What will we eat?"
"You have already eaten of my subjects and plundered my trees, which are their homes,"
she replied coolly, but relented. The girl pointed out some nearby herbs and mushrooms, saying,
"Those are safe to eat. I grant you leave to gather those."
The goblins bowed in thanks, for no matter how reluctant they observed the courtesies of the ancient games. And as they left with packs full of herbs and mushrooms, the girl returned home, her mischief managed. The fox walked beside her, impressed. Yet he also asked her,
"Is it wise to lie to goblins? You are no more princess than I am a swan."
The girl laughed and answered,
"But I did not lie, for I am indeed a princess, for my father and mother call me that many times."
The fox laughed at this, but continued, asking,
"Is it wise to say you have magic to keep them out? For ye are no more an enchantress than I am a knight."
Once more the girl laughed and answered,
"But I did not lie. I knew of them because you told me. And how would I be able to understand you, if not for magic?
At this, the fox did not laugh, but smiled in deep thought. Finally he asked the girl,
And is it wise to teach them what they can gather to eat?
and the girl answered,
If they know which plants to eat, then they will eat fewer beasts and birds. Besides, I was taught to do unto others as I would have them do unto me.
And so the fox was satisfied. They parted ways, the fox to tell the tale to the other woodland creatures, and the girl to her home. But she told only a few people about her adventure, and of those few, even fewer believed her. They were concerned, but she only smiled and assured them it was all right. And so it came to pass that this played out over and over. The girl, on her regular outing to the forest, would hear that the goblins would return, and sure enough, they would be waiting for her, for they respected that they could not enter until they bested her. Whether it was the next day, or the next week, or longer, they came, and each time the girl bested them at her own game. Each time she would cite something to her advantage, and each time the goblins believed her. Each time more and more animals would follow her, emboldened by her tale. Each time she would impart wisdom to the goblins. She taught them which plants could be used for medicine, which rivers could be used for bathing or drinking, and what they could do with the trees they felled. Each time the girl spoke with the goblins, asking them of their lives and their woes. Each time she learned a bit more about their bare lives in the mountains, their teachings and their ways. And each time the goblins grew cleaner, more fit, more cunning. Each time the girl's victories were harder to earn, until one day the fox asked her,
Is it wise to teach them how to play the game? What if they beat you one day?
The girl only smiled and answered,
I have prepared for that day, I promise.
And so it came to pass that one day, through friendly teasing and much thinking, the goblins finally won a game. They laughed, they cheered, and they mocked the girl. Yet at the same time, they also thanked her for the game and shook hands. For they were taught that a worthy opponent was worthy of honor.
Now you will take us to your home, princess. We beat you fair and square,
said the bearded one. The girl smiled, a sparkle in her eye.
Very well, she agreed. A promise is a promise. And as we agreed, will you grant me one promise in return?
To a man, the goblins agreed, for if nothing else, the goblins obeyed the rules of the game. And so the girl bade them.
Promise me you will leave your weapons behind.
The goblins were shocked. To part with their weapons surely seemed like great folly. But they had given their word, and they kept it. The animals were shocked, and many fled to seek refuge, but a few remained, the fox most of all. For they saw the girl smiling the smile she wore when she was planning mischief. The girl returned home, and when the villagers saw who she had brought with her, many panicked and prepared to draw swords. But something kept them from doing so. Maybe it was the animals which followed the girl around, where most fled from humans. Maybe it was the goblins, who came without arms and looked cleaner, better fed and nobler than any monster they had ever heard of. Or maybe it was because, through it all, the girl with golden hair smiled knowingly. Standing between both sides, who stood back in fear, the girl walked towards the center of the village, beckoning to both humans and goblins.
These are new friends I met in the forest, she said. Do not be frightened of their looks, for they are really quite nice. They have lived without proper homes, or clothes, or meals. I have tried to teach them, but I am only a little girl. Will you trust me and welcome them?
Most of the villagers were stunned, uncertain of what to do, but eventually the girl's parents were the first to welcome the goblins, and as they introduced themselves and taught them about the village, other villagers did so as well. And so it came to pass that in time the goblins went on to live in the village. They took what they learned from the girl and learned yet more about living with others. It took time and it took patience, and the goblins did not stop being goblins. They still loved their ribald jokes and pranks, roaring with loud laughter, being more forceful in taking what they wanted. But like the girl, they learned when and where they could do as they used to, and when it was more important to respect others. For some goblins, they eventually took these lessons to heart, but for others, the fire of their race would never go out, even if it now had the light of kindness shining upon it. For these, they always had the forest to go into when they felt the urge to make mischief, and now they knew to respect the beasts and their homes. And if they ever felt like the humans did not understand them, they knew that at least one did. A little girl with golden hair and a sparkle in her eyes. The end.